Okay, so I've been speaking a lot on the 8 brain, or the 8 wave, or the third eye, which is the infinity connection to our higher selves. So let's explain what it is exactly. Let's talk about what this is. All right, so references in pop culture. We saw a car that went back in time, made by a scientist who hit his head and saw this image, which was the flex capacitor, which is actually the spear of destiny with the rabbit ears, the white rabbit. So the story of the white rabbit is where the white rabbit leads you to the tree with the hole in it. So that's the sun. So whenever the sun sends its spears out, it sends it in threes like that. And that's the flux capacitor. So when he hit his head and saw that image, which is the white sink, which is probably the sun, and the sun hit him on the head or whatever, gave him silver hair like the creator, he was able to create a time machine that had the manifestation of 8 electricity on it. Now, what is 8 electricity? It is double this. Now, I can't even say that, because when I spent 6 months in a tent, intentionally, I could have just, I made lots of bread, but I could have went and got an apartment or anything, but I didn't. And I enjoyed myself. And when I went into an apartment, because I was working on the bus, I became sick because I had an electromagnetic field that was turning into an 8. So that makes me think the trees, even though they're carbon-based life forms from silicon trees, they're an 8 mostly. And anything that's outside becomes like an 8 because the sun is an 8. And these are all 8 stories. So when the woman shows up in Gary and Wyatt's house, it shows in the manifestation of electricity. Same as Shazam, same as the Back to the Future, where the car had electricity, and same as oh my gosh, what is a good example? Shazam, Flash is a good example. So that's what we want to get. We want to heighten our electrical responses. As we become smarter, we are actually becoming and these gaps are being bridged slowly, and then the final percent is the final break-in of the final layer. So we want to go for the 8, and essentially, you know, you want to meditate and stuff like that. You want to sun gaze as much as possible. And hey, you guys, we're in a silent war. That's what we're in. We're in a war right now over our own flesh. It's insane. These people are at war with us, and they don't want us to know it. They want us to sit back and be distracted while we're being poisoned and attacked and assaulted from above, and our water supply and everything else. So let's look at the sine wave. Sine wave is half of an S. Remember I was making that example of how we were an 8 at first, and then they gave us a half-life with our surroundings and the moon and everything else, and then they took our whole life away from us with that. So now we're just distracted, chasing our lives, chasing our tails. And yeah, so let's talk about the sine wave. It's seen everywhere. It's in the inverters, it's in the power lines, it's hitting your house. The half of the capacity being your surroundings after being out indoors for, say, 6 months or whatever. You'll feel sick because you're not in the correct environment, and this is flooding the walls of the entire house or whatever environment you're in. So these environments typically are half of the S, which is invisible, virtually invisible, unless it sparks or it shocks you, and it goes through your body, virtually invisible, does not manifest on the outside, and it can kill you because it does not allow you to break through to the other capacity, which destroys the mere mortal. But it's very interesting because they figured out, oh, let's cut it in half, and now we have a weapon. So it's like, wow, that's fucking crazy. So if the 8 was flowing everywhere, it would be dangerous to them, because we would just be, people getting electrocuted would turn into super beings, and they would not perish. So half of the 8 does not allow a sheep or a U.S. citizen or whoever, typical layman or whatever, come out of this outcome, because it fries them without hitting them with the full capacity that allows them to switch over. So that's pretty messed up, but it's pretty amazing to consider. And then it kind of makes me wonder, what is actually flowing through this makeup? What is flowing through the S-wave conduit? They cut it in half, but is it actually half of the 8 power? Or is it something else? Because we're using 10% of half our brain. We're not even using 50% of our brains. So it makes you wonder, what is in that? And then the same sine wave is being pumped out by the moon. It's changing the way the sun dumps its electromagnetics over the Earth. So it sends another sweep over, besides it being that, you know, the stories of the Soul Rover or the Pac-Man and all that. It sends out electromagnetic waves in the sine wave. So it's enforcing this. So if this were to be shut off and this were to be shut off or broke down, then this would automatically flourish. Because why? The tree with the hole in it would automatically take over the Earth. That green power would just be so strong, it would just take over the Earth and people would automatically go into the 8 capacity. So it's very interesting. So that is my explanation of the 8 brain wave, and that is where I'm headed. And I hope that is your goal, and I hope you don't forget it. And when you get awake, expand to the great. And when you get awake, stay awake.